In 1965, American cars were fast, flashy, and frighteningly unsafe. The Chevrolet Corvair was still flipping on corners with its unstable rear suspension. The Ford Falcon crumpled on impact, offering little protection. Safety features, seat belts were optional, and airbags didn't exist. Steel dashboards, sharp edges, and weak brakes turned every drive into a risk. In the race for style and horsepower, safety was left far behind. Dear viewers, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you for your support. Number 5. Why the 1965 Mercury Mterrey was dangerous. Deadly flaws. Size without safety. At over 4,300 pounds, the Mterrey was a heavy, long vehicle that handled like a boat. Poor cornering and long braking distances were common. The body-on-frame construction had no crumple zones or energy-absorbing areas to cushion passengers during impacts. It offered no rollover protection, and the roof structure was relatively weak compared to its mass. Structural flaws. Door failures. Inside collisions, the door latches were known to fail, causing doors to swing open, leading to ejections or partial ejections of occupants. This issue was more dangerous due to the frequent lack of seatbelt usage. Interior hazards. The cabin was filled with sharp steel trim, metal dashboards, and rigid steering columns, making any collision, even low-speed ones, particularly injurious. Seatbelts were not standard, and many models left the factory without them or had poorly anchored lap belts. Handling and braking concerns. Despite its large size, the Mterrey featured drum brakes front and rear, which faded quickly under stress, especially when loaded or descending hills. Tires and suspension were not designed to handle emergency maneuvers, making swerve and recover scenarios highly risky. Fun fact: the Mterrey shared its basic platform with other Ford big-body cars, like the Ford Galaxy 500. While stylish and smooth riding, it wasn't built with modern crash engineering, making it more lethal in collisions than smaller, newer rivals. Number 4. 1965 Chrysler New Yorker. Outdated crash protection. The car used a body-on-frame construction, which lacked the crumple zones and impact-absorbing materials later found in unibody cars. In serious collisions, especially frontal or rear-end crashes, the frame could twist or buckle, leading to body separation, a condition where the passenger cabin detaches or misaligns with the frame. There was no standard use of reinforced passenger safety cells, a key feature in modern cars to protect occupants in a crash. Door latch and structural issues. Side impact protection was practically non-existent. The doors had weak latching mechanisms, making them likely to pop open in a crash, ejecting unbelted passengers. The sheer mass and length of the vehicle also contributed to poor structural rigidity in side collisions. Unstable high-speed handling. At highway speeds, the New Yorker's recirculating ball steering system made the car feel vague and disconnected, especially in emergency maneuvers. Coupled with a soft suspension, the car was prone to body roll and understeer, which could make evasive action dangerous or ineffective. Braking deficiencies. The large, heavy body relied on drum brakes that were prone to fade during repeated stops, especially when loaded. The bias ply tires of the time offered poor traction, making stopping distances long and skid risk high in wet or sudden brake conditions. Lack of restraint systems. Seat belts were not standard equipment, and airbags didn't exist. The interior featured hard metal surfaces, like the dash and steering column, that were dangerous in even minor crashes. The 1965 Chrysler New Yorker was powerful but poorly controlled at high speeds, spacious but structurally fragile in collisions, luxury-packed but safety-starved, typical of the pre-regulation era before federal crash standards were implemented in the late 60s. Number 3. Why the 1965 Pontiac Catalina was dangerous. Performance outpaced safety, offered with powerful V8s, including the 389 and 421 cubic inch options, producing up to 376 horsepower. However, it still relied on all drum brakes, which faded quickly under repeated use or high-speed braking. The car's weight and speed meant that stopping distances were dangerously long, especially in emergencies. Steel dash equals interior hazard. The interior featured a steel dashboard and metal trim, common in the era before padded interiors. The knobs, switches, and instrument panel were all hard-edged and protruding, which turned the inside of the cabin into a blunt force hazard during crashes. In collisions, unbelted passengers could be thrown into these surfaces with catastrophic results. Outdated handling and tire tech. Like many cars of the time, the Catalina used bias ply tires, which had less grip and poor response compared to modern radial tires. Combined with soft suspension, the car could feel floaty or unstable at speed, making emergency maneuvers risky. No standard safety gear. Seatbelts weren't standard and were often ignored even when present. No airbags, no headrests, and no side impact protection. Summary: the 1965 Pontiac Catalina delivered muscle and comfort, but at the cost of safety, overpowered for its braking system. Filled with hard, dangerous interior materials, lacked basic crash protection or modern restraint systems. Despite its iconic looks and V8 grunt, it remains a classic example of 1960s American cars where style and speed outweighed safety. Number 2. Why the 1965 Chevrolet Malibu was dangerous. Weak frame construction. Built on GM's A-body platform, the Malibu had a semi-unitized body-on-frame setup. In severe frontal impacts, the front subframe could deform and intrude into the passenger compartment. Crash tests and real-world collisions showed that energy absorption was minimal, leading to a higher risk of injury to occupants. Underwhelming drum brakes. Equipped with four-wheel drum brakes, which were prone to fading during repeated use. No ABS or brake assist. Long stopping distances were a dangerous reality, especially with optional V8 engines pushing more speed and weight. Hazardous interior design. The dashboard was metal, with hard plastic or chrome trim. Protruding knobs, switches, and steering columns became impalement or blunt force dangers in a crash. The steering column could collapse toward the driver in frontal impacts, especially with poor restraint systems. Lack of safety equipment. Seatbelts were not standard and often optional. No headrests, airbags, or reinforced door beams. Roof structure and side impact protection were practically non-existent by modern standards. Fatal flaw in crashes. In a frontal collision, the Malibu's front-end structure could buckle, causing the firewall and engine components to invade the cabin. This often resulted in serious lower body injuries or fatalities, particularly for unbelted front seat passengers. Despite being a beloved classic and an affordable performance car, the 1965 Chevrolet Malibu posed serious risks to its occupants. Crush-prone front end, dangerous interior hardware, weak braking and handling under stress. Today, it's admired for its design, but also remembered as a case study in why crash safety evolved so dramatically in the decades that followed. Number 1. Why the 1965 Plymouth Barracuda was dangerous. Poor traction and handling stability. The Barracuda used a rear-wheel drive layout with a relatively light rear end, especially in the Slant 6 models. Without modern traction control or limited slip differentials, it was prone to oversteer or fishtailing, especially in wet or icy conditions. Steering and suspension were tuned more for economy than performance, making high-speed maneuvers risky. Lightweight, inflexible body. The Barracuda had a unibody construction that helped save weight and improve fuel economy. But in crashes, this structure lacked the crumple zones or reinforced passenger cell needed to absorb impact energy safely. The result? In frontal or side impacts, crash forces were transferred more directly to occupants. Lack of safety features. No airbags, no anti-lock brakes, and no traction or stability control. Seatbelts were often not standard, and even when present, were usually lap belts only. No headrests or reinforced roof structure made rollovers or rear impacts more deadly. Interior hazards. Like many 1960s cars, the interior featured metal dashboards, pointy knobs and levers, rigid steering columns that could collapse inward during a crash. Even minor accidents could cause serious injuries due to these hard, unyielding surfaces. Crash safety legacy. While the Barracuda was innovative in design, featuring one of the largest rear windows of its time, it lagged behind in occupant protection. Unlike muscle cars of the late 60s and early 70s that began integrating more performance-oriented safety features, the '65 Barracuda was still very much a style-first machine.